In today's Farm Report, 2015 is the International Year of Soils. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
2015 is the International Year of Soils, as declared by the United Nations General Assembly, an opportunity to recognize the importance of soils in our daily lives. As U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Tidwell points out, though, many take this natural resource for granted.
We take it for granted until it's gone, and then we go, what happened?
USDA is participating in this celebration of soil health. But as Jason Weller, the chief of the Natural Resources Conservation Service, notes, USDA's efforts to champion soil health has not just been an annual event.
This is something from the creation of our department at USDA we've been focused on since 1862. Before there was an NRCS, there was a Soil Conservation Service. Before there was a SCS, there was a Soil Erosion Service. Before the Soil Erosion Service, it's the Bureau of the Soils. People have been talking about this for a long time.
Part of the celebration and education efforts for the Agriculture Department and the International Year of Soils took place recently with a kickoff event at USDA headquarters in Washington, D.C.
I think this International Year of the Soil is a wonderful opportunity to educate the young people of this country. I strongly suspect that a lot of people in this country just do not understand and appreciate the extraordinary treasure and asset that we have.
A treasure that Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack points out allows our food and fiber to grow, to filter clean water, and support our existence among many other things. As NRCS Chief Jason Weller says, the International Year of Soils, in addition to being an educational campaign, is also a call for action, one from the USDA perspective that will require partnerships, starting first and foremost at the ground level.
Really it's about that one-on-one conversation and that transfer of the technical knowledge to that landowner.
There is also the continued strengthening of conservation and research partnerships to advance soil health. USDA Undersecretary Catherine Wotecki says a network of university and agricultural research stations are building upon a century's worth of soil research to address future challenges to our ecosystems.
This network is going to help to address some of these critical challenges in the 21st century, give us insights on how to deal with soil degradation and restoration, assess soil carbon loss, and increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our nation's capacity to sustainably enhance agricultural production.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. Farmers, if you grow spring crops, you may have some important sales closing dates coming up for crop insurance products for this year. New ones created as part of the 2014 Farm Bill. USDA Risk Management Agency Administrator Brandon Willis says January 31st is the closing date for several counties and crops in the state of Texas for both the supplemental coverage option and for upland cotton growers, the stacked income protection plan. Meanwhile,
some have February sales closing date, and some are the middle of March for some of your Midwestern crops.
Willis says producers should go to the RMA website, www.rma.usda.gov, to find more information about these programs, as well as online tools and apps to assist farmers in understanding coverage options. But when it comes time to make a decision,
really, I'd encourage farmers to talk to their crop insurance agent. Those are the professionals. They're the ones that know these programs inside and out.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture recently awarded its first round of RCPP, or Regional Conservation Partnership Program, grants. Gary Crawford with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
This is indeed a new era in conservation.
So I agree with you, Mr. Secretary. This absolutely is a historic day.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and the chief of USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Jason Weller, announcing the first projects for this new Regional Conservation Partnership Program, under which local areas needing conservation work can get USDA money, but they have to go out and get other partners to match that money. Vilsack told reporters USDA has given the go-ahead for 115 projects in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, projects that will get over $370 million in federal money.
We fully expect the resources that are being announced today to be matched at least dollar for dollar. So what we're looking at is nearly $750 million of investment in conservation.
And so Vilsack says
this is a big day for conservation, for soil health and water quality and habitat and wildlife well-being.
USDA's Conservation Chief Jason Weller says this new approach to conservation work
turns inside out the traditional federal approach, where we come in with our tools and our assessments and we say, here's where we think we need to work, here we think we need to do, and then we use a program an acronym to go and try and tackle that one solution. What this then turns that completely inside out and tells the partners, you have all the program tools available, so whether it's easements, whether it's nutrient management planning, whether it's putting in buffers, whether it's different structural practices. They then get to design the solutions on a farm or ranch by ranch approach, but aggregate that, target that action so that really then you can have a real result at a bigger scale and also accelerate that action. And what traditionally would have taken many years, we can get done now much more quickly.
Chief Weller said this is just round one, and he says they had 600 proposals for projects this last time out and only were able to choose the 115. So this program's already drumming up a lot of interest from potential partners who are considering contributing to projects in their regions or actually creating those projects, partners that may not have ever been involved before.
Agricultural commodity organizations and associations, farm groups, dairy cooperatives, ag retailers, certified crop advisors, farm elevators, you name it.
Even cities and other principalities have expressed interest.
And I'm really excited to see what today's announcement, what it helps spark across the country.
This latest funding announcement covers both fiscal year 2014 and 15. The next announcement for 2016 will be made later this year. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Farmers, you have from now until the end of February to come into the Farm Service Agency office and adjust your yield history and also your allocation of base acres to various crops. Ohio State University economist Carl Zuloff says it's only the second time in the last 35 years you've been allowed to do that.
So you are really making a decision that you need to think of not just for this farm bill, but maybe for the next one and maybe even for the next one.
And Zuloff says that base acre decision is probably the most important decision you'll have to make, including the later choice of which risk management program you're going to go with. Base acres apply to all of those programs.
And so the base acres is a really important decision because it really directly affects for all three programs how much you could get paid if payments occur.
Now, some farmers may just decide to keep everything the same, but Zuloff says yields and planting trends have certainly changed a lot in the last 35 years.
So I really encourage you to go and talk to FSA and look at the options that may be before you.
And do it well before February 27th. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The Agricultural Act of 2014, otherwise commonly known as the Farm Bill, added new programs and also reestablished prior ones. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
If you are a beginning farmer or rancher, you will soon have new education and training resources coming your way, thanks to a reestablished Farm Bill program.
The Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Development Initiative is a program that the National Institute of Food and Agriculture supports. And the intent here is basically to develop ways to get new people coming into the farming and livestock production enterprises.
National Institute of Food and Agriculture Director Sunny Ramaswamy says the Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Development Program was originally established in the 2008 Farm Bill and now resumes after a funding lapse. Winning applications will soon be announced from last year's funding cycle. And recently, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announced
the availability of $18 million under our Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program.
With applications for FY15 funding from the Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Development Program due by March 13th. NIFA Director Ramaswamy says funding is awarded to organizations that implement programs that train and educate beginning farmers and ranchers.
These applicants could come from the traditional academic community, the land-grant universities that we work very closely with, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, organizations that support veterans.
And there are some caveats that Ramaswamy says makes this initiative truly a collaborative effort. 5% of total funding must each go to projects that train veterans, as well as socially disadvantaged, limited resource, or farm worker audiences that wish to begin or are beginning farming and ranching. And applicants must provide funds or in-kind support that matches up to at least a quarter of federal funding. And what the development programs offer is more than just knowledge of crops and livestock.
They need to be inculcated with the skills to think of the financial systems that are needed. What kind of curricula do you need to develop? What sort of skills might they ought to have in thinking of these stressors that might prevent you from growing that crop or from raising that livestock? Also, there's issues pertaining to food safety, for example. The farming enterprise is a pretty complicated enterprise today. And throw into the mix information about technology, smart systems, and things like that. Today, your farmer is going to walk around with either a smartphone or a tablet and assess the environmental conditions in which his or her crop or livestock are being raised, and make decisions based on the marketplace, etc., whether to go ahead and spray for a pest or not, whether to go ahead and harvest or not, whether to forward contract or not. All of these are going to be part of this construct of grant proposals we're going to be seeking.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
We're about protecting public health and we're about food safety. And this is exactly what we believe is in the best interest of the American citizen.
The Agriculture Department's Deputy Undersecretary for Food Safety, Al Almanza, talking about USDA's proposed new safety standards to cut salmonella and campylobacter in ground poultry, as well as raw chicken parts. Now, back in 1996, USDA put in standards for whole chickens, but things have changed since then.
Consumers don't buy whole birds anymore. They buy chicken parts.
And so USDA is proposing some new contamination standards that processors will need to meet, and also a little different procedure to be used when USDA inspectors take samples for testing.
Traditionally, we take 52 samples, 52 consecutive days. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that, and we're just going to take 52 samples and not let them know when we're taking the samples.
Almanza says by making those changes,
we're looking at reducing 50,000 illnesses a year.
USDA will be taking public and industry comments on the proposal for 60 days. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.